Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jed Lee. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts, just steps away from the historical Camp Meigs playground. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network, and they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Amazon Music, Audible, Castbox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. We have two wonderful guests I'm so excited to share with you today. First up, we'll be joined by acclaimed singer, songwriter, and recording artist Jason Gray, as he is here to celebrate his debut children's picture book. We'll also be joined later on by DK Ryland. She'll be here to celebrate Have You Seen My Acorn? Are you looking for the perfect gift for a young reader? Woofy and the Dinosaur Dig Adventure, the second book in the Woofy series, is an exciting choice that fosters creativity, friendship, and teamwork. Join Woofy, a small gray stuffed dog, on his thrilling quest to help his friends excavate a T-Rex in the mountains. Young readers will enjoy his humorous adventures and admire his skills as a pup paleontologist, all set in a beautifully illustrated lyrical story. Authored by Helen Rogenson, retired award-winning teacher honored with the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching. This book encourages lifelong learning while supporting charities for animal rescues and children in need. Don't miss out. Visit us at unpackyourownhappy.com and connect with us on Instagram at unpackyourownhappy. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back, written by Stephen Joseph and illustrated by Andy Case. In this third installment of the Snoodles series, the Zoodles are determined to have their revenge. With the help of a grimy millionaire who's fallen on hard times, they intend to poison the Earth's water supply and turn everyone into willy-nillys and dilly-dallies. Can Brianna and Ricky save the Earth again? Will the outcast kids on the other side of the track rise to the challenge and help save the world? You can find out with Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back. This episode is brought to you by the Logan series. 3 wonderful books written by Christine Ritchie McNamee. Logan and the Missing Masterpiece, Logan and the Lost Luggage, Logan and the Missing Jewels. Logan and the Lost Luggage is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read, and all 3 of these books feature Logan, an adorable Cocker Spaniel who travels the world with his magic bone. You and your kids are going to love traveling around the world with Logan, meeting animals from all over the world, visiting different countries, and learning how to get along with people from other countries and other cultures. It's a beautiful series of books. Our Reading with Your Kids certified great read panel loved Logan and the Last Luggage. We know you're going to love all 3 books. Check it out today. The Logan series by Christine Ritchie McNamee. Join us right now to celebrate his debut children's book. Please welcome to the show critically acclaimed singer-songwriter Jason Gray. Hey, Jason, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. I just love the book Sparrows. What a beautiful creation.
Thank you very much. I'm very pleased with it as well.
Yeah. Jason, full disclosure here, when I received a press release that Jason had a book, I absolutely wanted him to be on the show because Jason extended a wonderful kindness to me and my daughter a number of years ago. He was on tour with Lauren Daigle doing a Christmas tour, and he came to Massachusetts. And when Jason plays down south, he plays these big arenas. And 10 years ago, when he came up north, it was in small church basements. And we helped set up that show. And Jason invited us to sit down and have dinner with him and Lauren. And it was wonderful. And then he introduced my daughter, who is aspiring to get into the music business, to his friend and collaborator here on Sparrows, Corey Hinkle. And Corey became a great friend and mentor to my daughter. So thank you for that. It's good to see you again. And I'm super excited to help you with this book.
Oh, thank you. I remember that tour. I remember that show. Lauren was a brand new aspiring artist, and I just believed there was something really special about her, and was so grateful to have her out with us.
Mm-hmm.
And her career is so interesting. You know, she's a phenomena that only comes along once every 20 or so years.
Yeah.
In our industry, you know, and I remember, and she was very childlike and innocent and humble and genuine. And I brought her out. So that was her first tour. And then I brought her out again the next year. And from that, and in that intervening year, you know, she released one Christmas song that had been on the radio for maybe 3 or 4 weeks. Normally in our industry, you have to have about 4 or 5 songs break the top 10 before people move from, oh, I like that song, to, oh, I like that artist. You know, so it takes a long time for people to know who you are. And Christmas songs usually don't count because, you know, they're only on the air for a few weeks, and people don't connect with them the way they do a normal song. Anyway, Lauren's song had been out 3 weeks, and people started to show up and just a line out the door to meet her just after, you know, when she'd only had a song out for 3 weeks. It's like, oh, there's something special happening here, you know. And I remember at the end of the tour, she said, I love this tour so much. I want to do it every year. And I was like, oh, that's very sweet, but I bet your management is going to have other plans for you next year, you know. And then sure enough, you know, she blew up. And
Mm-hmm.
but that was a sweet tour, and those were great memories. And Corey, who now works at my record label, was out on the road with us, and that was really special too. He's an old friend. It's interesting because he's from the region where I'm from, up in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a youth minister, and he was a fan. And according to him, he wrote his first fan letter to an artist, to me.
Oh, cool.
And I got that as an email, you know. And then over the years, we met. I played at his church. Eventually, he left youth ministry, moved to Nashville, ended up working in the industry, ended up working at my record label. So that's either like taking stalking of your favorite artist to a whole new level, or we were just meant to work together, you know. So, and he helped me do this book.
Yes.
So he was the driver on it. Yeah.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
he, you know, I'd wanted to do a children's book for years, and it was, hard to get the excitement around a project like that you need in order, for it to happen. And so when he started to get excited about it and brought the opportunity to me, I was like, yeah, I've been wanting to do this for years. And so it's been a real gift.
Yeah. So let's talk about Sparrows. This is based on your song, Sparrows. But the story is, I love the story in so many ways. Tell us about the story.
Well, yeah, you know, it's not explicitly autobiographical, but it is based on my own experiences. You know, the main character in the book, her name is Ellie, and she has a stutter. She has a speech handicap, and she's anxious about all kinds of things, not the least of which is Annabelle, a girl at her school who teases her because of her speech handicap. So she's being bullied by her anxiety, but she's also being bullied by an actual person. And the book is about how she comes to a place of not being at the mercy of those things anymore, right? So she's in church and she hears Matthew chapter 10. The preacher talks about, you know, look at the sparrows and if God looks after them, how much more will he look after you, you know? And that brings her a peace for her anxiety, or gives her a spiritual tool, a spiritual practice for managing her anxiety, right? For rising above it. And then one of the things, of course, that makes her anxious is this girl who teases her at school. And then there's also a message of compassion in the book, you know, recognizing that, you know, there's the quote by the Scottish preacher from the 1890s, Ian McLaren. He said, "Be kind, because everyone you meet is in a hard battle." And Ellie comes to understand that her adversary is in a hard battle and has anxieties of her own, and then is able to move from being a victim of the bully to being able to reach out and to love the bully and then make her friend, you know.
Yeah. That's one of the things I loved about the book is the resolution and her decision to be kind and not to react or not to fight or shy away. It's a beautiful message, and obviously it's a message for in a book that a kid who has a stutter, as I did when I was a kid, and occasionally rears his head when I'm very tired. It would be great for that kid to see themselves portrayed in the pages of a book. But I think it's just as important for kids who don't stutter, who might have a classmate to read this book and to have more empathy for everybody in their classroom.
Yeah, that's what I hope. You know, I mean, the word compassion means to suffer with, you know, and you know, when we're kids, you know, there are hard things that we go through, but I don't know that we're always in tune with our suffering in a transformational way, you know. But to begin to put that on a child's radar, so that when the hard things happen in life, they already kind of have a place to put it and a sense of what to do with it, you know. I remember we almost wrote a different book years ago. I'm gonna say about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I was playing in California, and a dad came up to me afterwards, after the show, and brought his son with him, who I'm gonna say, I bet he was 10 years old, maybe 11, but he wanted his son to meet me because his son also had a speech handicap, and he wanted to see that, oh, you know, here's a guy who has that, and everything turned out all right. And the boy was very, very sweet, just kind of emanated a tenderness and a kindness, as his dad talked about how all the teachers in his school loved him because he always stood up for other kids who were being bullied, and always kind of took care of the other kids and made sure that those who weren't included felt included. And I got down on my knee and I looked him in the eye. I said, I'm not surprised at all to be hearing all these wonderful things about your character. And it's, I believe it's because your speech handicap has been painful at times, and your pain has helped you to recognize the pain of others. And so you have this beautiful instinct to step in and to do something about it, and that's, one of the gifts of having a speech handicap, it can make you tender-hearted towards other people who suffer, makes you able to be compassionate. So the book was almost about that, like the story of a little boy, going through these experiences, and then at the end, and just kind of down on himself because he's got a speech handicap. And then at the end, he goes to a concert and he sees this artist who talks with him afterwards. And I thought that could be really meaningful. And it was, an event that actually happened. But I was uncomfortable with, then he meets Jason Gray, and I'm kind of the hero of the story. And you never want to make a story where you're like the hero of the story, So we didn't go that route. But I love the story direction that we ended up getting to do, and I think it hits the same notes, right?
Absolutely. I love that the book has a great message of that God loves you, God loves us, God cares about us.
Yeah.
But I know there are a lot of families out there that don't have a follow Christian faith tradition or don't follow any faith tradition. Could they still get something out of this book?
I believe so. My story is that I didn't grow up in the church. I grew up on the road with my mom's rock and roll bar band. And nobody was talking to me about God or anything like that. And so I didn't grow up in the church, but I grew up around a lot of music. And I believe the first time that I heard God speak to me was through music. The first music I cared about was the music of Simon and Garfunkel. And there was a lot of chaos, a lot of drama in my life. My parents were in the midst of a very ugly divorce, and that's actually what triggered my speech handicap. And we were living at my grandparents' house. I didn't have my own room, so I slept on the couch every night. In many ways, my grandpa was my best friend when I was growing up, but he was an alcoholic, so there was a lot of volatility, And I remember I was doing errands with my grandpa one day, and it was January in Minnesota, so he left the car on when he went into the liquor store. And then over the radio in the car, I heard a song by my favorite group, Simon and Garfunkel, Bridge Over Troubled Water. And the lyric is, when you're weary, when you're feeling small, when tears are in your eyes, I will dry them all. Like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down for you. And I'm hearing this song in the car, and all of a sudden I have this sense of a loving presence in the car with me. And I'm just kind of enveloped in it. And I don't hear an audible voice, but I hear something in my heart that says, psst, hey, the words of this song that you love, this is how I feel about you. And I believed it. And I didn't have language to say, I heard from God. Like, that came much later, that understanding, like, oh, wow, he's been. So the moral of that story is that I believe that God is able to make himself heard and known any way he wants to without our help or permission. And so I believe and I hope that this book will be an occasion for the Holy Spirit to speak to children's hearts, and maybe even the hearts of the parents who are reading it,
That's, that was one of the things that I loved reading with my daughter and with my son, so much, especially there was a book, in our family that was very special. It was written by Tommy DePaula, and it was called Clown of God. And, I didn't realize it was special to us because I worked as a professional clown for 35 years.
Oh.
And so when we would read this book, I would oftentimes get choked up, but my kids loved it. And I think in some ways they saw themselves in the pages of the book. But those moments, and I'm imagining Sparrows would be the same way. These books that give us a chance to turn to our kids and say, God loves you, just like I love you, but even more than I could ever love you.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things that's meaningful to me in the book is and I was greatly helped by a children's author named S. Waller. She's gifted at speaking the language of children. So I was grateful to work with her. And the illustrator, Hilary Griffiths, she did such a wonderful job. And one of the cool things about the book to me is that on every spread, somewhere there is a sparrow, a bird, And the idea to me is that, that peace, that hope it's always in the frame. It's always available to us if we can recognize it, and if we can find it, if we can tune into it, if we can recognize it, and so that's woven through the DNA of the book, and that's a message for all ages, right? Like no matter what we're in, this peace is available to us. It's possible.
Yeah, what a great lesson for kids. I attended at Jedgewood High School, and one of their traditions is called the Examine. And at the end of every day, kind of looking across your day, the moments you were happy, you're sad, and try to see how God was functioning in your life in those different moments. And to get our kids through finding the sparrow on the pages of the book, what a great way to introduce kids to just that. Take a moment every night and just think about what God did in your life that day.
Where was the peace of it offered to you? Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a good thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You've been writing songs and telling stories, and that's one of the things about your songs is that you are clearly a storyteller in your songs. How different was it telling a story in 600 words as opposed to a 3-minute song?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm still writing songs for the next record. I was working on this children's book. And then the big project I've been working on for the last 2 years is a book of devotional essays for every one of my songs I've released. It's a pretty exhaustive volume, and that's a different kind of writing as well, and there's more. You aren't so bound by the form of a pop song, right? So I was able to spread out and develop ideas with a little more complexity, and that's a very serious kind of writing, and both as a writer of that kind of a book and of songs, I've been trained that there are certain words you're not supposed to use, like very or actually. It's actually helpful. Actually isn't like helping the sentence out. It's not helping the idea. It's very helpful. That's not helping anything. It's not moving the ball down the field. It's better to be more direct and say it's helpful instead of it's very helpful. And so I've just had to develop an allergy to certain words like that to make sure that I don't use them, very and actually, and then I start working on this book with Jess Waller, and there are moments in there like the language that she shaped it into was, and he cares very, very much. And I was aware, well, I wouldn't have written that sentence because That's one of the taboo words. You're not supposed to use that. But in a children's book, and he cares very, very much. There's something about it that feels so comforting. It feels like a little hug in those words, So that was the first indicator to me that, oh, this is like a different language, And I was very grateful for Jess's expertise there, and I learned a new language.
Yeah, excellent. Now that the first children's book is out there, are we planning on writing more?
I would like to do one for Remind Me Who I Am, another song of mine, and I'd like to do one other one. I wrote a song for my sons called What I Wish for You. And it's a song about wishing hardship and trouble, wishing for the kind of hardship and trouble in my son's life that leads to transformation, that grows us up, because we all experience that, right? It's the hard things that we endure that expand us, that grow us up. That, my earliest mentor, he said, I don't trust anybody who hasn't been broken. And the broken people I meet are the most trustworthy, kindest, patient, compassionate people, strong people I've ever met. And it's weird because we have this instinct where we want to protect our kids from the very things that would make them all that they could be, right? So I would like to do a book about that song, because I think that could be meaningful to read to a child when they're 8 years old. It could be meaningful to give them as a graduation gift. It could be meaningful to give an adult when they're in the midst of some great difficulty, So I really hope I get a chance to do that one.
Yeah. Well, I hope so too. I have a niece who will be graduating college in a year, and that would be a wonderful gift for her.
Yeah. So, but I'm grateful for Sparrows now and everything that I learned in it. And also I was struck by the holy ground that this book will allow me to stand on with people. Like when I realized, there's a parent and a child, who they will read this book together. It will solidify that bond. That child, it may become one of their favorite books. They may keep it for 20 years and then read it to their child. And it's like that I would get to be a part of that in any way is like more than I deserve or could hope for. And so just beautiful, meaningful.
Well, Jason, I'd love to talk to you all day long, but I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have lots of interviews scheduled today. Tell us where we can go to find out more about Sparrows and find out more about you and your music.
Yeah. jasongraymusic.com is the website, jasongraymusic.com. And then I'm also on Instagram and Facebook and all those places. So
awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of Sparrows. It's the debut children's book, beautiful debut children's book from our guest, Jason Gray. Jason, thanks so very much for being with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Hope to see you again.
This episode is brought to you by Feliz Navidad. It's December of 2019, and Pittsburgh is covered in a terrible fog. Even worse, all of the reindeer get sick and they can't fly. Everyone in the North Pole is worried they'll have to cancel Christmas. But just when all hope seems lost, Santa's pet, Feliz Navidad, raises his paw to help. And while a dog is not quite a reindeer, Feliz is their last chance to save Christmas. This is a book about perseverance and grit. Feliz Navidad, the story of how Santa's dog saved Christmas. Get your copy today. Feliz Navidad by Ari and Rhea Halper. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by 28 Days of Neon by Mayera Rosenberg. 12-year-old Neon Blue Green is queen of the cafeteria, co-captain of the cheerleading squad, and has the most amazing dog any 7th grader could ask for. Her only complaint in life is that her parents named her after the color of a sports energy drink. until the morning she overhears them whispering and learns that she has only 28 days left to live. Neon needs a miracle, but how can she get one in only 28 days? Then it hits her. She'll do one good deed every day. This is a fascinating middle grade novel that you and your kids are going to love to read or co-read together. Get your copy today, 28 Days of Neon by Mayra Rosenberg. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the books by Charmaine Perry Knights. Charmaine is a TEDx speaker, award-winning facilitator, world traveler, and author. Serving military families through quality literature is her goal and her passion. Her books are absolutely amazing. They are just full of great messages. Books like I'll Find My Way, and that's okay. I Move a Lot, and that's okay. And It's Cool to Be Kind. Such great books that you and your kids will absolutely adore. These books deserve to be in your family library. Get them today. The books by Charmaine Perry Knights. They're available today at Amazon. This episode is brought to you by OnceUponADance.com. Ignite imagination with award-winning dance and movement books. Once Upon a Dance inspires young readers to twirl, leap, and dream with whimsy and wonder. Whether your child enjoys unicorns, bats, zombies, or cats, Once Upon a Dance has a dance-it-out story to get them moving. For more information about this 37 delightful books, please visit OnceUponADance.com or find them on your favorite social media platform. Join us right now from the beautiful state of California. Our guest is here today to celebrate. Her new children's book is called Have You Seen My Acorn? Please welcome to the show, DK Ryland. Hey, DK, how are you?
Hi, thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you on. You know, Have You Seen My Acorn? It makes me sad because we had this giant tree in our backyard for a couple of decades, and it was gorgeous, and it dumped about 1.5 million acorns in the yard every year, and that was annoying, but we really loved it. It was a tree that I sat underneath with my kids, reading books to them and looking up and imagining all the creatures that were living on that tree. But unfortunately, it had lived its life, and it needed to come down before it came down on our house. So we had to say goodbye to it. But it's funny how attached you can get to a piece of nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have this huge pepper tree in our house, and it's similar where it's massive. You can see it from it's blocks and blocks down the road as you come up, and it's just beautiful. And it's just a part of our home, and it provides shade and just this really nice ambiance, and you can read under it. And so I totally get what you're saying.
So I'm imagining that tree is still in my backyard, and my daughter is 5 years old, not 28. And I am out there and I'm reading Have You Seen My Acorn to her, or with her. What would we be reading about?
Well, Have You Seen My Acorn is about a squirrel who has buried his acorn and he cannot find it. And so he goes around asking all the woodland creatures, all his friends, all around the oak tree, if they've seen the acorn. And what Squirrel doesn't know is that the acorn has turned into a sapling, and everybody else knows and is trying to tell him, but he is not quite listening. And so the reader also knows, so that just adds to the comedic effect. And then eventually Squirrel has a resolution, at least, and is very happy by the end of it. But I won't ruin the ending.
I love that image of a squirrel that isn't quite listening. I think that describes an awful lot of kids in the.
Yes, listening is a huge skill that kids, need to learn, and some adults obviously need to learn that as well. And I think squirrels are just funny characters because they're just squirrely, and so I think it works really well for a squirrel to just not quite be figuring it out,
Yeah. Amen to adults needing to learn how to listen.
Yes.
I'll be happy when this election season is over.
Yes.
And hopefully we can start listening to each other again. That's the thing. My son, I remember driving, and I've mentioned this on the podcast before, driving my son and his buddies around in my minivan. And I always volunteered to drive because you get so much information, such a sneaky parenting technique. Sit there and you don't say a word and they forget that you're there and they start talking. But I noticed in this one particular day, there were, I think, 5 guys, and we're talking 6th grade, maybe 5th grade, 6th grade, and they were all talking, but none of them were listening to each other. There was 5 different conversations going on, and they were very polite. They would wait for each other to stop talking, not comment on what was just said, but just bring up something completely different. And I found it fascinating.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it is a learned skill, right? To listen and then to respond. And I see the same thing with my kids. They're a little younger. They're 8 and 10. But when they talk to their friends, I'm like, did you guys finish a thought or you just start new ones,
How do you think we can teach our kids to listen? Because I pointed out to my son after his buddies got out, I go, you guys didn't talk to each other. You just talked. And he was quite surprised that I made that observation.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. But I think, a conversation that I have with my kids a lot is that, after someone's talking, that they make sure to respond to what was said and then say what they want to say, but to make sure that they're acknowledging someone and making someone feel heard. And I think that's a really important part of relationships in general.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I guess a great way, just like if we want our kids to fall in love with reading, they should see us reading. If we want our kids to
gosh, yeah.
We should be listening to them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
So this idea just came to you as you were out with your pepper tree watching the squirrels run amok?
I've always had a very special relationship with squirrels. So I've always wanted to write a book about squirrels. I actually did my senior film. I have a film degree. And I did my senior project about the squirrels at Penn State because they're very, very friendly. And, so I've always loved them as a character. And then I think I also just wanted to write a picture book where the kid reader knew what was happening, where the main character didn't. I think it's hilarious. And I think it's also empowering for the kid to see something and to just know more and to be able to say, it's right there, or why don't they get it, and get involved in the story. So it just kind of all came together eventually as I was writing and brainstorming, and things just kind of, worked out.
Those type of books can generate just kind of pandemonium of emotions and laughter and energy, I think it's a perfect book if you have that kid with extra energy to just be there with them and just celebrate the energy and go with it. And the squirrel doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yes. Yeah. It's not like a sit and be quiet type of book. It's like let's participate and let's talk about it. And yell at the squirrel. That's fine, and in a classroom setting as well. It might get a little crazy and rowdy, but that's fun, and to me, my main goal as an author is to make reading fun and accessible, and that it's a positive experience. And as a kid, I loved reading funny books, and that's what made me fall in love with reading and become a reader. So to be able to provide that is kind of the main idea for me.
Yeah. Must make you feel pretty good knowing that kids are all over the country, all over the world are giggling at your squirrel.
It's awesome. I can't even describe how cool that is, and it's just amazing. I don't even know how else to put that other than what a dream come true.
Yeah. On your website, you describe yourself as writing fun and subversive children's books. What do you mean by subversive?
I think subversive is just flipping ideals on their head a little bit. And some of the other books another book I have coming out is called the Dangerous Alphabet Book. And that's just not really dangerous, and alphabet books aren't really things that you normally put together. I like a book where an animal eats another animal or, whatever. So just things that make you think and make a kid think and see things differently and maybe not be quite as, black and white, that it's a conversation starter,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Kids do love danger, don't they?
They do. Yeah. Which is terrifying as a parent, but it's also good for them, to test boundaries and things.
Yeah. And my new educational magic show, there's a point in the show where I give an audience member a chance to make a choice. They can choose between helping me do a trick that is bright and colorful and fun and uplifting, or they can help me with a trick that's extremely dangerous. And we haven't done the fun, colorful, uplifting trick yet.
Yep, absolutely. It has to be dangerous. I totally get that.
Hey, you've had an interesting life so far. You mentioned that you went to Penn State, and being there in the middle of Pennsylvania, beautiful country, quiet, mm-hmm. And then you have this enormous campus with 300,000 students or something like that. That must be a trip.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up in California, so I was here, and then I got recruited to play softball at Penn State. So I went on a visit, and it's beautiful. It's just like kind of what me as a West Coast kid envisions college is supposed to look like. It's just so pretty, and the trees and the buildings, and it's old, and it's, gorgeous. And then the football and all the things. And so I was sold the second I stepped on campus, and, I loved it, but yeah.
Yeah. State College is quite a place. I performed a number of times at State College, had my van break down once on the way to State College and got towed to the Pet Boys that fixed me up. You also mentioned that you played softball at Penn State. You're also a professional softball player?
Yeah. So I played at Penn State where I was an All-American, and then I got drafted to play in the Pro League for the Philadelphia Force. So again, in Pennsylvania. And then I played overseas for a little bit in Germany, and then coached for like 10 years after that. So softball's been a massive part of my life, and kind of informs a lot of the things that I write, not on purpose. I don't write about sports specifically, but teamwork comes up a lot, and things that are, just kind of in the sports realm.
Yeah. I played I didn't play professional soccer, but I played soccer on a collegiate level and also coached. And that teamwork, especially when you get onto a real competitive team where everybody's taking it very seriously, what a great experience for kids to have. And you can do it as a dancer, as a softball player, soccer player, many as a theater kid, many different ways to just get with a group of kids and have a goal and work for it.
Yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. I mean, I think sports were my childhood experience that really made my childhood as positive as it could possibly be. And then into adulthood, coaching and giving back and really emphasizing teamwork, working towards a goal, what it is to support each other, what it is to work through adversity, like all those things. There's just so much in there that's just so much bigger than, winning and losing or competing, and that's great, but it's so much more than that.
Yeah. I also saw on your website that you filmed wildlife in Africa. I have to hear the story.
Yeah. So, my degree was in film, and I love documentaries. I love wildlife documentaries, mostly. And, so that's what I wanted to do. And so I signed up for a program called the Wildlife Film Academy in South Africa. And between my junior and senior year in college, I went and lived in South Africa and filmed wildlife, and lived in the bush for a while. And it was the most incredible experience I think I've ever had. It was so awesome. And at the time I was dating my now husband, and I realized that if I wanted to have a family, that I probably couldn't be a wildlife documentarian in Africa. So I have found a way to tell stories and draw animals, and it all has kind of come full circle. A lot of like framing in film translates to how you draw illustrations and how you compose things and how you tell a story. And so it's just come around in a really roundabout way.
Yeah, yeah. Did you always know when you're a kid, when you're competing on the softball field, that in your heart you were a storyteller?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, that's a really good question, because I don't think so. I loved stories. I loved reading, especially like Shel Silverstein, or things that were really clever and made me think and made me laugh and surprised me. And I remember thinking, I could never do that. Like, how do they do that? How do they construct that? That's so clever. That's so cool. And just being in love with it, but never really thinking that's something that I could do or that I would be good at. But I think what I learned through time is that you're not necessarily just good at something. I think that if you love something and you're interested enough in it and interested enough to continually learn about it, that you build the skills to be good at it.
Yeah. I've had this conversation not too long ago with another guest. When you start playing softball, soccer, you kind of know that I ain't where I'm going to be at the end of this season, and I'm not where I'm going to be at the end of 10 seasons. I'm going to improve, and that's accepted, and it's okay, and you know that we're going to have to work hard at this. I think when it comes to the arts, a lot of people think, I wasn't born with it. I don't got it. I can't do it.
Totally. Yeah. And that is so not true. It's everything, every skill is learnable, right?
Mm-hmm.
And everything you put time and effort and practice, deliberate practice into, you can improve at. And I think that's another thing, right, that sports taught me, that it's okay and failure's okay. And as long as we get better day by day by day, then we'll eventually get there. And being able to accept that. But yeah, you're right. A lot of people think of creativity as something you have or you don't. And I just don't think that's true.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. We look, the greatest hitter in baseball, Ted Williams, he had this amazing batting average, 401, I think it was. And I never took the time to realize, well, that meant he failed 60% of the time.
Yeah.
But we look at that 40%. That's amazing. We have to start looking at other aspects of our lives, or help our kids look at other aspects of their lives in the same way.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It is true. We're going to fail more than we succeed. And usually those failures are going to be more valuable than the successes in our journey of just learning, And so I think it's really important with kids to emphasize the value of failure and to not be scared of it, but to embrace it, because there's just so much growth that happens there.
Yeah. So as the mom to an 8 and a 10-year-old, what are you doing to encourage? Are you, get out there and play? You got to get out in the field and be an athlete, or you become an illustrator, writer, or are you just like, I just can't wait to see what you're going to be?
Yeah, no, it's very much, I can't wait to see what you're going to be. And we're very much try everything. And so, they do music and they do sports and they do art. And, my daughter has a little crochet business because she's, just very, driven kid. But it's just like, explore what you want and go with that, and we'll support you, whatever that looks like. But our one thing is that we have to try everything and we have to finish commitments. And if at the end of it, we don't like it, we don't have to go back to it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I'm not sure I told this story on the podcast. My daughter fell in love with dance at 2.5. We fibbed and said that she was 4, and they let her in. They noticed she was wearing a diaper, I guess. But she had that in her life. My son didn't find anything that he was passionate about. And then one day, from out of nowhere, and I was very surprised that my wife suggested this, she said, do you want to play football? They have tryouts for Pop Warner. And she had always said, my kid's not playing football, my kid's not playing hockey. But she came up with this because she was so kind of frustrated. And my son said yes. And so we went down, and I said to my son, look, if you're going to do this, you just have to make the commitment. You have to play the season. If I'm going to write this check, once I hand it to them, you're good going to the end of the season. He said, absolutely. I said, great. And I handed the person the check and they said, go down the hallway there. And we went down the hall and they started handing them out shoulder pads and the helmet and, the thigh pads. And he looked at me and goes, why do I need this? I said, dude, you're going to be playing tackle football. And he said, what? I said, but it's too late, dude. We already made the commitment. and he did, and he loved it, and he played for a number of years.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm so glad he enjoyed it and that it worked out. That's awesome.
He really did. Yeah, he really did. And his best friend today is somebody that he met on the football field. And so I love the advice. As somebody who excelled in a sport, what would you say to a parent of an 8 or 10-year-old who's really good at either softball or soccer or baseball, and they've just decided, oh, this is it. My kid's going to get a scholarship. He's going to be playing baseball, softball, 12 months a year. We're going to get him into every travel team and this and that, and not going to do anything else but baseball and specialize.
Yeah. I've seen that a lot, especially as a coach. And what I would say to that is that is a really good way for overuse injuries, and it's a really good way for burnout. And as a previous, obviously collegiate player, but also high school coach, I saw that so much, where they only played one sport, specialized from a young age, and then ended up just not really liking softball, and then also getting hurt at an age where you really shouldn't have an ACL tear, or you really shouldn't have these things that are happening that are surgery, or career ending or whatever. So I would say, play as many sports as possible, do as many things as possible that are different. And all of those sports inform every sport. Athletic movement is athletic movement. It only makes them better athletes. So if they decide down the road that they want to play college softball or college baseball or soccer or whatever, that they will be better prepared if they're a multi-sport athlete. And I would also say to let them decide whether that's something they actually want to do, and not go based on talent, because at that level, everyone is extremely talented. And the kids that are extremely talented but hate doing it are not going to succeed, and they're not going to be happy. And at the end of the day, we want our kids to be happy.
Amen. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I have to ask, what is the wildest wildlife that you got to film?
The wildest, probably a crocodile, because that's pretty crazy. But my favorite was a giraffe, because giraffes have these super long eyelashes and they're really pretty, and it's just like mesmerizing, these big eyes, and like they're just so interesting looking. And my first book has a giraffe main character, of course, but yeah, like love the giraffes.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I understand you have another giraffe book coming out in the future?
I do, yeah. So the sequel, Giraffe's Book is Missing a Story, comes out in the winter. I think it's March of 2025. So coming up pretty soon.
Awesome. Well, you have an open invitation to come back on Reading with Your Kids to celebrate that book.
Oh, thank you. I would love that. That'd be great.
Hey, where can people go right now to find out more about Have You Seen My Acorn and find out more about you?
Yeah, my website is the best place to find me. So www.dkryland.com. And then, I've got links to all the socials and things there. And I have, resources for writers, and I've got all sorts of things on my website.
Yeah. And we always encourage families to go to and support their local bookstore and ask for the book, and also request books at the library. And I think it'd be really fun, because I'm a bit subversive myself. I think it'd be really fun if you tell your kid to just walk up to the librarian and say, have you seen my acorn? and have the librarian be very confused and think they have to actually find an acorn around, and then you can come and save the day and say, no, it's this beautiful book by DK Ryland. If you don't have it, could you order it?
I love that. That's awesome.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of Have You Seen My Acorn? Our guest has been DK Ryland. DK, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a blast.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Best way to make sure you don't miss a moment of the show is to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcasting app. We love the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods. But wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find the Reading with Your Kids podcast. And if you are listening on the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, please be sure to tell your local station manager you love Reading with Your Kids. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guests, Jason Gray and DK Ryland. Also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Rayling Tang. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.